Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tim, for that very good introduction there. Good evening, everybody. My name's Winnie Frost and Lisa Schlecht, and we're the co-chairs of the Environment and Parks Committee. I think most of you know us, but what the heck, I like to say that. And like to welcome you all back after the summer months. And because of all the rain in July and then the beautiful weather in August, we're out of our 4-year drought, which is very exciting for this for all around most of Virginia. And I wanted to say that we have a pretty full agenda tonight. We're going to start off first with the Northern Virginia Bird Allowance with Betsy Martin. And after we finish with their presentation and Q&A, and they'll be doing a program on their wildlife sanctuary program, then we'll move into a concern that's raging right now, and that has to do with fee collections. A proposal by Fairfax County Park Authority at both Riverbend Park and the observatory. So we're happy tonight to have both the Friends of Riverbend's president here, Cindy, and then the president of the Anna Lemna Society, Bill. So, oh, they're so nice, they're even identifying themselves. Thank you. And then we also have Tim Hackman here, who gave us that great commercial at the beginning. And he is our wonderful Dranesville Fairfax County Park Authority representative. So he's concerned about everything that we're concerned about, and he makes sure word gets out. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jerry Tuval, who is one of our EP members. Jerry, where are you there?
Over here, Winnie.
There he is. And he was so nice. He emailed me soon after he became an AP member and said, hey, I have a couple of good programs I'd like to recommend. And we said, bring it on. So I'm going to turn it over to Jerry because it was very kind of him to do that. Anybody else in our group has an idea for a program, we are very, very welcome to hear them. Okay, thank you, Jerry.
Thanks, Winnie. So tonight's speaker, as Winnie said, is Betsy Martin. Betsy is a member of the board of directors of the Northern Virginia Bird Alliance, which is our local chapter affiliate of the National Audubon Society. Betsy heads up a really effective conservation program at the Alliance called the Wildlife Sanctuary Program. And that's what she'll be talking about tonight. And I had suggested this to Winnie because I thought it would be pretty interesting for this group. We live, as was mentioned before, kind of in the shadow here of Riverbend and Great Falls and Seneca Parks and Fraser Preserve. And what Betsy's program does, and she'll explain it much better than I can, is works with local property owners to get their land certified as a wildlife sanctuary. And living next to all these parks is an opportunity to really expand or stretch the reach of those parks to provide suitable habitat for birds and other wildlife. So it's a program that I think, contributes both to the satisfaction of homeowners here in the Great Falls community, but also contributes to the larger good of providing habitat for bird populations that have been declining precipitously over the last number of decades and helps really a global problem. So with that intro, I'm going to turn it over to Betsy to talk about the program. Betsy?
Thank you very much, Jerry, for that nice introduction. And thank you all for having taking an interest in the Wildlife Sanctuary Program and having me come to speak about it. So what I want to talk about mostly is the practices that we try to teach our clients, to create healthy habitat. And maybe I'm going to start sharing my screen right now.
It's up.
Okay, good. Now I have to make it. So a major study not too long ago found that wild bird populations in North America have declined by almost a third since 1970, which represents a loss of almost 3 billion birds. And there have been huge losses in most major families of birds, even including common birds that we see in our every day in our backyards. And habitat loss is the cause of it, more than twice as important as any other factor. We humans have taken what once looked like this, and we've turned it into this. We've transformed woodland into a sterile monoculture of turf grass lawns and decorative alien plant species. Lawn is more than half the yard. The average American yard doesn't provide much for birds to eat or even places for them to hide from predators. So we've destroyed wildlife habitat in the pursuit of our own purposes, with no accommodation for the other creatures that once lived there. We need to find ways to share it, invite wildlife back into our yards, and expand the territory where they can make a living. So that's the purpose of the Wildlife Sanctuary Program. We help property owners create real functional habitat on their own properties. We aim to change landscaping practices in ways that support wildlife and do less damage to the environment. We encourage homeowners to engage with nature in new ways by observing it and nature and the wild inhabitants of their own backyards. And it's eye-opening for many people, and for some even transformational, starting them off on a journey of discovery. Creating habitat on private properties also, as Jerry mentioned, extends habitat beyond the parks and preserves and can help create connections and corridors with nearby natural areas. So people learn about us primarily through our website, by word of mouth, and through tabling events and presentations. When a homeowner submits a request through our website, a wildlife sanctuary ambassador visits to walk the yard with the client and recommend ways to create healthy habitat that provides food, nest sites, shelter and cover, and water. And most properties we visit are residential, but we also visit HOA common areas, retirement communities, libraries, all kinds of, almost any kind of a place that has property. And the Wildlife Sanctuary Program operates in 7 Virginia counties. In Loudoun County, our partner, Loudoun Wildlife Conservatory, funds and operates the Wildlife Sanctuary Program. And in the others, it's the Northern Virginia Bird Alliance. And at the heart of the program is our Healthy Yard Pledge. In order to get certified, a homeowner must have adopted or pledged to adopt 7 habitat best practices. And that's what I really want to spend most of my time talking about. And here they are: reducing hazards to wildlife, removing invasive exotic plants, planting or preserving native plants, reducing pesticide and fertilizer use, protecting water quality, reducing area covered by lawn, and creating structure and connection. So I'm going to start with the first one, which is to do no harm, to reduce hazards to wildlife. It makes no sense to create habitat to attract wildlife and then put them in danger through careless or thoughtless actions, such as poorly designed windows that birds crash into, or light and noise pollution. But the biggest hazard of all is cats, second only to habitat loss as a cause of declines in bird populations. Domestic cats have contributed to the extinction of 63 vertebrate wildlife species worldwide. Annually, cats kill 2.4 billion birds and 12.3 billion small mammals, amphibians, and reptiles in the US alone. The leftmost bar of this graph shows the number of bird deaths due to cat predation, which dwarfs the next most important cause, human cause, window collisions in the second bar. So we ask our clients about cats, and we encourage them to keep their cats indoors. If they aren't willing to do that, then we don't recommend a bird feeder or a bird bath or fruiting shrubs or anything else that would bring birds to the yard. Creating bird habitat in a yard occupied by an outdoor cat is basically creating a death trap. So our second habitat best practice is to remove exotic invasive plants. Invasive plants like English ivy climb and kill trees, spread into and overwhelm natural areas, displace native vegetation, and create hazards to people. They really create food deserts, basically, for the wildlife. Ambassadors help clients identify the invasives growing in their yards and recommend how to remove them. We provide information about invasive identification and treatment, such as the fact sheet shown here by Blue Ridge Prism. We're concerned not only about invasive exotic plants. Whether they're invasive or not, exotic plants do not benefit wildlife. A study by Narango, Talmy, and Mara used local data from Neighborhood Nest Watch to show that yards planted with non-natives essentially starve chickadees because they don't support the caterpillars chickadees need to feed their young. Chickadees are much less likely to nest in non-native yards, and when they try to reproduce there, they're less successful. A yard is not a sanctuary for chickadees unless 70% or more of the plant material is native. To illustrate the difference between value in wildlife between exotic and native plants, take a look at these two species of trees. The white oak, all of the oaks are good for our wildlife, but the white oak in particular hosts 537 species of Lepidoptera, whereas ginkgo, which is commonly planted as an ornamental, it's from Asia, supports only 4 species of caterpillars. So when you're a bird in search of food for your young, that's a life or death difference. Now, the third best practice, which this leads us to, is to plant native plants, which is really the key to creating healthy habitat for wildlife. Native plants and insects co-evolved over millions of years. Native insects are not adapted to feed on alien plant species, which dominate traditional suburban landscapes. In fact, that's one reason those landscaping plants are sold, is because the pests won't eat them. So without the native plants, we won't have the insects. And without the insects, we won't have the birds. The entire food web is based on native plants. Dr. Doug Talmy has documented the number of caterpillar species hosted by each native plant, each plant genus. And this list shows the best native genera of trees ranked by the numbers of caterpillar species each genus hosts. These native trees are among the keystone species that are critical for the food web. 96% of terrestrial birds rely on insects supported by keystone plants. But it's not just the insects that are adapted to and benefit from native plants. Birds depend on fruiting native shrubs to sustain them during fall migration. Native birds and plants have co-evolved so that fruiting is timed during the migration. So if you plant a fruiting native shrub with fatty berries that ripen in fall, it will help sustain migrants in their long journey to South America. An example is the wood thrush, which is here feeding on spicebush berries, which are an excellent source of fat for birds, bulking up for the migration. And native shrubs such as viburnum and pokeweed actually signal to the birds when their fruit is ripe by what's called foliar fruit flagging. Their leaves and stems turn bright colors, and the timing coincides with the ripeness of the fruit and with the fall migration. So the fourth best practice is to reduce the use of pesticides and fertilizers. Insecticides destroy terrestrial, aquatic, and soil food webs. Killing off the insects breaks the food chain and deprives birds and other wildlife of food. Fertilizers pollute streams, promote algal growth that depletes oxygen and creates dead zones. We tell clients that if they create healthy habitat, the natural predators will control pests and keep things in balance most of the time without insecticides. Native plants don't need fertilizers because they're adapted to native soils. We also don't certify yards where the homeowner uses a broad spectrum mosquito spraying service. It harms bees and other insects, and it's particularly harmful to aquatic invertebrates and the animals that depend on them. On our website, we provide alternative methods for dealing with mosquito problems. So the fifth best practice is to protect water quality. Development in Northern Virginia has not only fragmented the forest, but also increased stormwater runoff, harming local streams and the Chesapeake Bay. We may advise clients to install a rain barrel or rain garden to intercept and store runoff from their properties. Replacing lawn with native plants and trees also absorbs runoff and nutrients and improves water quality. If a property is on a stream, a homeowner can reduce runoff by planting or preserving a vegetated riparian buffer, and in the process creating excellent habitat. A sixth best practice is to reduce the area covered by lawn. When consulting with somebody who wants to begin gardening for wildlife, an ambassador typically helps the client identify a specific area of lawn to convert and recommends suitable native plantings. We recommend starting small. Tackling an entire yard all at once is daunting, especially a lawn of the size in this picture. For example, this before picture shows an ordinary suburban home with a large and patchy lawn. Here the homeowner has removed a turf from a section of it, and here he's replaced it with native plants that provide habitat as well as privacy and beauty. And natives, people may think of natives as belonging in sort of casual landscapes, and some people may think of them as messy, but they can actually are very well adapted to being incorporated in more formal garden designs, like the ones at the Mount Cuba Center. If you've ever been there, they have fabulous, beautiful gardens, and they rely entirely on natives. So when ambassadors walk the yard with clients, we try to help them identify natives that are quite likely to be growing there already, but that homeowners may not recognize or value. For example, many gardeners remove violets and other weedy natives, but these are often great plants for wildlife, such as frost asters shown in this slide, which is a great pollinator plant, or fleabane, which feeds on the goldfinches, or violets, host plant for fritillary butterfly caterpillars. In a way, what our program is trying to do is to move closer to something that's more like restoration rather than gardening, by paying attention to what natives are already present or which emerge when invasive species are removed. Sometimes creating habitat means leaving things alone that you would normally remove from your garden. Fallen leaves, for example, provide important habitat for overwintering insects and caterpillars and foraging habitat for birds and other critters. Dead tree snags provide excellent habitat and may attract cavity nesting birds, as well as woodpeckers and other critters we're going after the bugs living in the Prothonotary warblers are the only eastern wood warbler that nests in cavities, whether natural or man-made. The male prepares multiple cavities, maybe 5 or 6, for his prospective mate, and he puts a little bit of moss in each one. And he leads the female to each cavity, and she chooses her favorite. Or if not, maybe she doesn't like any of them, and she flies off and he's out of luck. Imagine. So the 7th best practice is to create structure. We ask clients to look at their properties in a more big picture way, to assess whether they have layers and vertical structure that provides shelter and habitat niches for diverse wildlife species, and to connect the habitat they're creating to nearby natural areas. Different species use different layers to forage, nest, and shelter. Creating layers increases the number and diversity of wildlife species that can be supported in the same space. So, in addition to recommending habitat improvements, ambassadors also visit and certify yards as wildlife sanctuaries. This is the sign, this is a representation of the sign you can get when you get certified as a sanctuary. To be eligible, homeowners must have adopted 2 or more of the habitat best practices in the Healthy Yard Pledge and plan to adopt all of them. They must have 2 habitat features, for example, a rain garden, a bird bath, and so on. And they also have to observe 10 sanctuary species actually using their yard. If the animals are showing up and using your yard, then it's habitat. Our motto is, let the critters decide. This requirement to document the animals gets people paying attention to the wild inhabitants of their backyards and what their needs are. And it is what distinguishes our program from others that involve just checklists. So the 42 sanctuary species that we focus on all breed in Northern Virginia. They represent different habitats: wetland, grassland, forest, and edge. Most have a decent chance of showing up in a suburban yard. For all of them, there are things homeowners can do to create habitat to support them. And they include 5 butterfly or moth species and 9 other invertebrates. There are 4 reptiles, 2 amphibians, and 3 mammal species. And as you'd expect from a program of the Northern Virginia Bird Alliance, there are a lot of birds, 19 species or species groups. The website has links where you can learn about each sanctuary species, its habitat requirements, and what you can do to support it. So, for example, if you click on wood thrush, you'll learn that it feeds mostly on leaf litter and vertebrates. In late summer and fall, wood thrushes shift their diet towards fruits, particularly fatty fruits, to prepare for the demands of migration. Fruits such as spicebush, foxgrape, elderberry, Virginia creeper, pokeweed, poison ivy. Their ideal habitat includes trees over 50 feet tall, a moderate understory of saplings and shrubs, an open floor with moist soil and decaying leaf litter, and water nearby. So what would this tell you about creating habitat? For wood thrush. First, preserve tall canopy trees, preferably unbroken canopy. Since the wood thrush is a bird of forest interiors, it's unlikely to take up residence in your yard. But you can plant trees that over time will increase the canopy and connect with nearby woodlands and provide foraging habitat and possibly nesting habitat for these birds. You could plant native shrubs and help them, support them for their fall migration. And you can leave the leaves, don't rake them up, but leave the leaf litter, which is foraging habitat for wood thrushes. It's where all the little invertebrates that they like to eat live. And when I removed the ivy in my own backyard and stopped raking up leaves, the very next year, a wood thrush showed up foraging in my leaf litter, which made it worthwhile. So after the requirements are met and a property certified, homeowners can buy a nice yard sign. And this represents actually a real achievement because only about 15% of our visits result in a certification. These signs posted on properties all over Northern Virginia are one way that people learn about our program. So if you get certified and you put up your sign, you in a way are also becoming an ambassador for this kind of gardening and creating habitat that supports wildlife. This map shows the 1,222 certified properties that we have certified as of this summer. And they account for 9,090 acres, which is a pretty big piece of territory. And you can see, probably not very well, but you can see that there's quite a few properties, dots up there in the northern parts of Fairfax County, which would represent properties in your neck of the woods. By adding more dots, our clients continue to expand available habitat and create more connections and more corridors for wildlife. And we hope that Great Falls people will also join in this effort. And I mean, it's really very rewarding kind of gardening. So thank you again for the opportunity to talk to you. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. I'm going to stop sharing right now.
Okay, Lisa already has a question.
Well, just an extension of the conversation. Thank you so much, Betsy. It was a great presentation. You mentioned early on that you help homeowners and HOA common areas. So our yard we just certified our yard, which was a great experience. We were talking about that earlier. Now working with my son who's 5 years old to identify all the animals. And I also learned this summer that my HOA got certified as well in the common areas. So I asked Linda Copier to come and share her experiences from the HOA side, because especially if you're talking about Great Falls getting more engaged, we have a couple of HOAs and they have large common areas. So that is a great way to make a big impact. So Linda, if you have audio, if you want to come off mute and just share a little bit about your experiences.
Be glad to. Came off audio and visual. Yeah, as she said, as Lisa said, I'm Linda Copier. I'm actually on the HOA board as the secretary and also the planner for the common area. And for those of you who might not recognize us by name, Fairfax Foxvale Farm is at the corner of Georgetown Pike and Springvale. It's the neighborhood with the white fence around it. Last year, the board surveyed the neighborhood to find out what people wanted in the neighborhood. And they came back with 4 priorities, and 2 of them had to do with native spaces and wildlife habitats and landscaping. So we've put together a plan to an improvements map, and that improvements map has been informed by resources that we've contacted, like the Northern Virginia Soil and Conservation District. They came and surveyed our area, particularly for drainage. The master gardener I contacted, and she was the one who actually said, you've really got to get certified as a wildlife sanctuary. So that's why we're here today. We also had an arborist walk through our common area to see what trees were there and give us an idea of what animals might live in them. And we've got a bunch of web sources like Plant Nova and Earthsanga, and several other websites have been available to us as we plan. So we did the map, and then the Robin Duska, who is the ambassador from the Northern Virginia Wildlife Sanctuary Program, came and walked the common area with us. And she was listening for the birds, she was looking for the animals, she was looking at the species of trees and other plants that we had. And she was very, very helpful. So if nothing else, having an ambassador come and talk to you and walk through your property is very enlightening and very helpful, and we appreciated her time. She liked what we had, and we talked about the species, and she wrote up her report. She was able to use our improvements map to submit with her report as well, which was helpful to all of us, because that way we could track some of the recommendations that she made and made those changes on the map. And then she was able to make her case for our certification. We did get certified. It covers all 10 of our common areas here. We've got about 50 acres of common area, and the other 50 acres or so is actually in homeowner property. So it's about half and half. And we've got a mix of land that's, a lot of it is open turf that is mowed, but we want to turn more of that into natural places. We do have wooded areas. We have, some are kind of dense, but they're small. So we want to add to those. The good news is that a lot of the practices, the common areas actually do meet. We don't use pesticides, for instance, or fertilizers. And we do have a lot of plants here that the animals use. But we can't control what the homeowners do. So for instance, we do have some homeowners here who can't stand the mosquitoes and do the spraying
Yeah.
for mosquitoes. And I can tell you that does make a difference. We don't see fireflies as much as we used to.
Yeah, Yeah.
And then the cats, I did talk to some folks about cats, and I don't know of any that are loose in the neighborhood now, but we can't control the cats. So those are two things we can't control, but we can certainly contribute an awful lot with everything else. So right now we've got our signs. We're getting ready to put them up. We are
Great.
focusing now on the invasives so that we can clear that out and then get the natives to grow back. And
Yeah.
we've got some areas that we really need to concentrate on. We also want to plant trees that will pull in some of the native animals that we want. And we're looking at one of the wider, wide open areas to actually start planting some trees in. And I think that's it.
That's great. Sounds like a big effort. And as in your case, where you've got really quite a lot of property in common areas, a lot of churches and HOAs have these big chunks of property, and sometimes they're just overwhelmed with invasives and they aren't, being maintained in a way that could create habitat. But a couple of years ago, we got money from the county to have a mini grant program for HOAs and churches, and they had to provide matching funds, but we would give $3,000, which was not a huge amount of money, but even so, it allowed them to hire contractors and take care of the problems. And a lot of them really, once they started down this path, they just kept going. They found that their common areas were much more interesting and pleasant for the people to be in once the invasives were dealt with, and as well as the wildlife. So, well, I commend you on doing that. It's great.
Thank you.
I should have mentioned, I forgot, but I believe that two of our nearby ambassadors, Greg Butcher and Linda Fuller, may be in the audience, and if you did put in a request, they might be the ones who would show up at your house to walk the yard with you. But I don't know if they're there or not.
I don't
not
see them
raising
on
their
the
hand.
line, Betsy. I don't see Greg on the line here.
Okay.
Any other questions? First, before we get there. That's great, Linda. I applaud you very much, and I hope you can be a model for other areas around Great Falls. That's really fantastic.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any? I think we have Bill over there. Bill Burton.
Thank you for your presentation, Betsy. I'm curious about the 10 sanctuary species. If you have a bird feeder, if your yard is already certified, but you also have a bird feeder, how do you separate the birds coming, they're attracted by the sanctuary as opposed to your bird seed? Do you care
Well, we
about that?
count them anyway. If
Okay.
you've got a bird feeder and they show up, well, that's good.
Yeah, good. Yeah,
I mean,
I live in a
we're kind of
townhouse.
putting more,
Oh,
we're
sorry.
kind of putting, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, we're kind of putting more emphasis on the kind of more natural ways of creating habitat. But the bird feeders bring the birds to the yard and make them available for people to see and watch. And that's
Right.
getting getting engaged with nature is part of the purpose and really part of the method.
Yeah. We have a townhouse with a tiny backyard that got certified by the National Wildlife Federation, I think before Audubon and Home got going. And then Robin moved into our cluster and she certified the cluster for us. So that was very convenient. So,
Well, that's good.
yeah.
And I see a question from Doug Harbrecht.
Doug?
Hi there. Hi, Winnie. How are you? I just have a question for our guest. We live in one of the more wooded areas in Great Falls. I mean, it's nothing but woods. Where I am is nothing but woods. And we see a lot of stuff. We see bears.
Yeah.
We had a bear, as Winnie knows, I had a bear in the backyard here.
Wow.
And we got all kinds of cool stuff. The distressing thing, and I just want to ask you about it, is the oaks seem to, well, we have been here for 45 years. And the oaks are all dying. They're all dying.
Yeah. Well, I
Not
think
only
it's
that, now we have the beech trees are all dying.
oh, really? All your
Please,
beaches
go
are
ahead.
dying
Yeah.
too. Well,
Yeah.
I live far south of you. I live down in the Mount Vernon district, not very far from the river. And it's true down here too that there's the oaks, a lot of oaks are dying. And I asked the person who used to be Fairfax County's urban forester about it, what the cause was. He gave us a presentation about oaks and what to do. And he said part of it is, there's sudden oak death, which is partly responsible for it, but also because, the timing of the development, there were a lot of oaks that were planted that have become mature over the time since they got planted in these newly built developments at the end of World War II and in the 50s and 60s, and they're reaching the end of their lives. And so I guess what to do about it would be to be planting a lot of young oaks that are going to come up and take their place.
Well, and if I may follow up, and I don't mean to be a downer here, a Debbie Downer. However, I mean, the Japanese stiltgrass, where we are, I mean, it's just ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's completely taken over the woods. Completely.
I know it's
all
terrible.
kinds of crap.
Well, right now,
and there's very, very little native stuff.
So right now, if you go after that stiltgrass before it sets seed, you can just weed whack it and leave it because it's an annual. And so if you catch it at the right moment before it sets seed, but not too long before so that it'll regrow, you can just whack it down and you may be able to eliminate it, but you have to have really good timing. I know
Okay.
it's terrible. And
Well,
there's so many more.
I would have to whack 3 acres of stiltgrass. I would have to whack 3 acres of stiltgrass.
Okay,
And
well, all right.
and that's and my neighbors are all the same way. It's just all over the place.
Well, maybe you could start with a half an acre.
But
And then next year, expand your It'll
Okay,
take you a long time.
thank you. Yep.
Sorry.
Jerry?
Something to
Peters?
work on.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Jerry?
Well, yeah, I think other people were on before me.
Oh, okay.
Hey,
I
Jerry.
think Cindy had her hand up first. I'll wait. before I-
Cindy, sorry,
I
Cindy.
just wanted to say, many of you may be aware that in terms of the beech trees, beech leaf disease, BLD, has reached our area, arrived about a year ago, and it could indeed be devastating to the beech trees. There's there's a little bit of treatment, but there's not a treatment for in a forest forest setting. So that is a big problem. They're working on trying to find some sort of treatment, but at the moment there is no particular treatment, and it's spread quite a lot in the past year, this season.
Thank you. Okay, is it Candy or Jerry? I'm not sure.
Do you want me to go? This is Candy.
Sure, Candy, yeah.
To follow up, two things, she's talking about the beech leaf disease. Bartlett did get approval through the Virginia Ag Department to inject the big, they have to be a certain size beech tree. I let him do it last year and it has been very effective because it's the only thing out there. But if you don't do it, it's just really sad. It's almost like Dutch elm disease. They'll all go. But there is Bartlett, and I think other companies do it, but they were the first to come up with a chemical that can be injected. It takes about an hour on a big tree. They go with, it's like giving them medicine. It's pretty amazing. And I just want to, one thing that has popped up in Fairfax County in this area that's even worse than stilt grass, and it's called wavy leaf grass. I can't even pronounce the name of it. You'll see it. It looks like someone has pleated the leaves. It grows right on the ground. But the worst part is when it sends its seed heads up. And I was with my friend, she let her dog go through it. I'm not kidding. There must have been 1,000 seeds on that dog's fur. It's just spreading everywhere, just as fast as stilt grass. And it's horrible. So if you see it on your property, I've already started seeing it here. I'm thinking, you've got to be kidding me. But it's just really going to be very prolific and probably worse than stilt grass. That's my 2 cents worth.
Thank you,
Not
Candy.
very encouraging.
No. Jerry?
Yeah, I wanted to respond to Doug's concern about the oaks dying. Doug, are the trees that are dying in your neighborhood surrounded by lawn? Do they have lawn growing right up to them? Or are they in a forest?
No, it's pretty much forest. Pretty much forest.
Okay, we found at the Grange in Great Falls, and I've seen it elsewhere. And Jim McClone, the retired urban forester for Fairfax County, has ratified this. And that is that basically lawn, that is turf, and big trees like oaks are not compatible. First of all, you have weed whackers, and if you hire a commercial service, I've seen so many places in public areas where the commercial service comes in with a weed whacker and they just tear the bark up around the soil, the crown of the tree. The other thing is turf is fertilized and herbicides are applied to it, and those don't help the tree at all. The oak trees need acid soil. And most people who are really maintaining their lawn will also put lime down, which just reverses the acidity. The worst thing in my mind is that people rake up all the leaves around their trees. Oak trees and our other big major canopy trees evolved in forests. And one of the nice things about forests is they keep their leaves. And the soil food web that uses the leaf litter as their food, okay, is not sustained under turf. So check your places where you've lost oaks and look what's growing underneath them. If it's not in a forest, it's stressed. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you.
Lisa?
Yeah, Betsy, before we officially started, you were starting to talk a little bit about thoughts that you had, or maybe conversations about how to create a program for families or materials for families. And I just wanted, if we could revisit that, and it'd be really interesting. I've noticed it's been a really great experience kind of bonding with my son and learning about these animals. And I did have some feedback of what changes you can make to make it a little bit easier for younger kids. And I was also curious if you'd been talking with the public school system at all to make this part of the curriculum for even just to create a little patch within your lawn or something like that. And any conversations that you've had internally.
Well, we haven't really, the trouble with the public schools is, they're operating on this schedule where, they disappear in the summer and the kids are there briefly and then they're going away. So we've never really had as good a relationship with, or not like it's a bad relationship, but we really should have an ongoing relationship with schools more than we do. But we don't really. I mean, we do occasionally certify school yards, and I've worked with people individually who are interested in creating wildlife gardens in schools, but it's not the program that it probably should or could be. In terms of doing something for kids, maybe you would send me put your email in the chat, and maybe we could interview about how you and your son experience this, and maybe you could provide input that we could use to do what we've always wanted to do with this little kit.
Sure, will do.
Okay. Thanks.
Oh, and Jerry, you have a question or a
Yeah,
comment?
My question is actually more for you, Winnie and Lisa, than it is for Betsy. At the beginning, Betsy said, that they'd be interested in having more wildlife sanctuaries certified in the Great Falls area. And as we said in the beginning, given all the natural areas that we have along the Potomac River, it would really be beneficial for the bird populations in this area. I'm relatively new to this committee. Is there some mechanism for getting word out to the larger Great Falls community about the wildlife sanctuary program so that people who are interested but don't know about it can get more information and sign up if they would like to?
Well, one good way would be in our newsletter that comes out every month to all of our members, which is a good number of people. So that's what we could do next month. We put an announcement in this month's to join in this meeting, and I think we got maybe a few more that came because of that, but I agree that we could do something for our newsletter next month based on this. Yeah, I took a bunch of pictures of Betsy's slides so I could refer to them, which is helpful too. We could add to that. A good question. Yeah.
I'll share. Yeah, we do have the newsletter that goes out to members. We have a Nextdoor account. We have a YouTube channel. So I'm hoping to put this recording up on our YouTube as well that we can share out. I think it's also really interesting, which is why I asked Linda to come here to share her case study and to hear from real case studies from people who've gone through the program of what were the steps and what were the barriers or hurdles along the way. And then we can address them one by one. So one is awareness, not even realizing this is an option or something I should be thinking of. That's something we can tackle as GFCA. The other ones that were mentioned, like grants funding to do this. Where do I get the native plants? What native plants grow where? Some people come from townhouses or apartments, you're not gardeners. So there's a whole learning curve there, connecting people to resources, which is why I love your program, because you get the expert to come and tell you, this is a good plant, this is a bad one. Those types of resources really helpful. And then everyone's mentioned managing invasives. That sounds like probably the biggest problem that we're facing as a community of how do you get the funds to hire people to handle that and come back over time, or get the volunteers. And both of those are challenging. So I think there's many things we can do. And the first thing is definitely get an email, getting the link out.
In terms of I think you're right. The education is part of it. And there is another resource to help overcome, which is to overcome the barriers you mentioned, which is the ambassadors' visits. You know, they know quite a lot and they go out. And even if somebody doesn't know anything, they can sort of lead them along and provide information and support and get them sort of started off down the path to do this. And they can also give presentations to garden clubs, for example. We do that quite a bit. And we probably could dig up some old article that we could give you to put in your newsletter if you're interested. And
You
and I
find
can
one,
send you
can send
the,
it
you
to
don't have
me.
to use your screenshots you took of my slides. I could send you the PowerPoint. You could just use some of the
Okay.
pictures.
Would you send me your PowerPoint and if you have any kind of articles, and we'll put something together for next month?
Okay,
All
Will
right,
do.
that's great. Thank you, Betsy. Okay, anybody else have a question? If not, we'll,
Nancy
Yeah.
Keefe wants me to, wants the PowerPoint to be shared with everybody, but I guess I can send it to you, Winnie, and you can share it with
yeah,
everybody.
yeah, we
Okay.
can easily do that, no problem. Yeah.
Okay.
Winnie, Karen has a question.
Oh, sorry, Karen, sorry. I didn't see your hand, excuse me. Go for it.
A question that I have, well, two things. Number one, about 25 years ago, I don't know if Eleanor Anderson is on this call or not, but about 25 years ago, she and Robin Wrench were working with a group to get us all involved as being wildlife sanctuaries, and many of us joined that group. I don't remember what it was. And they were able to get Great Falls declared as a wildlife sanctuary at the time. But Eleanor is the one that could tell you more about that than I can. But the other question that I have for our guest tonight is, for the first time in a long time, because I've fought it off forever, and I live in a neighborhood of very large lots. Everybody has a lot of land here. And I see that the roadside trees, for the first time in a really long time, are absolutely inundated with wild clematis. Is that good or bad? I know that from digging it out of my own gardens that the roots go all the way to China. It's very hard to get rid of because I never ever use anything in the way of poisons. My only way of getting rid of things is dig them out.
So, yep, it's blooming everywhere. It's autumn flowered clematis. It is not native. It is an invasive, and it's very aggressive, and it seeds everywhere, and it will grow, you know, it'll really overwhelm a whole set of trees and shrubs so that it's completely covering them. And on my own property, the only thing, I tried digging it out, and like you say, the roots, you can't get them all, and it seeds everywhere. So I use herbicide. I have like a little bottle, and I don't use very much. I cut the plant so that it's only got a few leaves left on it, so I'm not spraying the whole bunch of stuff. And I spray it, and you know, the herbicide kills it.
But when you're taking it out of, when it's grown up high in trees, it does a lot of damage to the trees when you're trying to get it.
Oh, yeah. It's really better if you can sort of keep it out of the trees. Whether or not you use herbicide, it's better not to let it become this huge mound of vegetation. It blocks off the light, and
they're not
another bad. And it's too bad because it's very pretty.
Yeah, it is pretty, but they're not my trees. I'm just noticing it along the roadways that it's gobbling up.
Yep.
All these trees.
Yep. Sorry, this is such a depressing topic.
Well, the good news, Linda got a certification.
Yeah,
over
that's great.
in the community across the street from my house. I'm going to go over there and look at it. I'm so excited about that. Anything else? Anybody else have any other questions?
Well, thank you all very much. I really appreciate your interest and all your questions.
Yes.
And we hope to hear from you.
Absolutely, absolutely. You'll be
Have-
inundated as soon as we get that article out.
Okay,
Okay,
have a nice meeting.
okay, thank you very much, Betsy. I really appreciate it. And to Jerry for helping out too with this.
Thanks a lot, Betsy.
Jerry's probably gonna hang out, I
Thanks,
don't know.
Jerry.
Thank you. Bye-bye.